Welcome back to another episode of By Design Advisors, where we believe business should be run by design and not left to chance. Really excited today for today's guest. We have Mr. John Sterling, a legend in the podcast space. He's the founder of Sterling Venture Groups. He's the host of Noob School podcast. He's the author of Sales for Noobs. He's a sales coach, sales expert, and he also plays the saxophone, which I learned today. So I can't carry a tune in a bucket. Definitely can't play. I bought a ukulele once, and my lack of tea genius, I never learned to play it. Okay. But we're glad to have you here, John. I know for the last 30-some years, you focused on building, selling, scaling, buying companies, expert in turning, I think you say, rookies into rock stars. And we're welcome to get your thoughts today on all things building, scaling, and growing companies. Also have my partner, Marty Osborn, with us on the mic today.
Hey,
Welcome,
good to see you.
Marty.
I'm glad you got my name right.
I know. I usually say Marty.
Marty. I don't know why. Marty.
Boston Marty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's start, Marty. How did you two meet? I know you guys have a long history together. Just tell us maybe how you all met.
Oh yeah. Well, John, like you said, he's always been a legend in this town. But we were at the time I was working for Fluor Corp. Remember, I was running Tabware, and we came up with this crazy idea of putting an application. It wasn't in the cloud; it was in a hosting services, and we were trying to take it private, and things fell through. And so I think John was at DataStream, and they heard about it, and they're like, "We need you to come over and do this with us." So John started negotiating, like called us up and said, "Hey, we'd love for you to do this business over here at DataStream." We're like, "Oh, okay." And so we're like, "Yeah, we're interested." And we went back and forth. And so John puts an offer together, and like every good sort of salesman negotiate, I'm going around in circles. I'm acting, well, maybe. And finally, I was like out in my driveway one day, and John just is like, "Are you going to take the offer or not?" Like, okay. Like, we've been dancing long enough, but are you taking it or not? I was like, "Yeah, John, I'll come join you." So that was like my first interaction with John. And I think one of the best ways to break through. So
yeah, it was good. It was good. So Dale, thanks for the introduction. I thought you might have said boob school. Did you say
Noob
school? Okay,
Noob
all right.
School.
Thank you. I want some clarification.
Well, if you're a bad salesperson, you become a boob.
Well, there could be some policy related to that. So Marty, I'll back it up a little bit, and maybe this is a lesson to the folks that are listening. Is Marty and I found each other much earlier than that. Marty was running or head of sales for another software company probably 10 years earlier. And he and I and Mike Bauer, who eventually started ScanSource, which is a little $4 billion startup now, and Jim Sobek, who just cashed in for a great victory, who was running enterprise VP of sales, and then I think Mike Cannon was
Jim
with
Twining.
us. Jim Twining, who did Southern Tide.
So Southern
Tide, I mean, and then we did DataStream, and so those people found each other. And we get together once a week for breakfast, I think it was. It turned into beers at some point.
That's surprising.
And we talk about, what are you doing in sales? What are you doing in marketing? How are you hiring? And we didn't do a lot of poaching. It was more swapping people around. This one doesn't fit for me. I'll give them to you. It's just amazing, if you surround yourself with like-minded people that are all doing the same thing, your chances of success go way up. I mean, I still call Marty, I still call Mike, I still call Jim. I call just about everyone still and ask questions.
God, it's so funny you brought that up. I don't know why that at first I didn't think about that. That was an incredible meeting of extraordinary business people. And the one thing I remember was, I think, Twining was just starting out. It was FX software or something before ScanSource getting started. Twining was successful. You were getting ready to go public with DataStream, and you were talking about like your market size is like millions of customers, and I was like in the apparel industry going, well, we have about 3,000 potential clients, and I felt like this big, but just being around that group, being around people that thought differently, thought big, and now that you mention, God, everyone is sold a business. Everybody. Wow.
And all of those people. Mike is really the only one still with the same business.
Yeah.
But he'll eventually be where we are, which is we've sold. And now we're out there buying and selling and coaching. And, it's really kind of a fun part of our business careers. But the other part of our meeting that you mentioned you very modestly said you did this little thing at Tab where you were kicking our ass. I mean, we were a big, $80 million a year company leading the world in what we did. And this little old company here in Greenville started to win some deals from us. And I got involved. And I called the customer, like, what is going on here? I mean, we're DataStream, And they said, well, do you do the hosted thing? And I'm like, well, no, but we will. And so until we did, we just would lose.
Yeah.
And so I called Mike,
Yeah.
my cousin who worked for you.
Which I didn't know at the time. I
we
was
had
like,
a secret meeting.
I was like, you had infiltrated my company with this cousin. I didn't even know it.
We had a secret meeting up in Flat Rock, North Carolina. We went up there and we played tennis. And then afterwards we talked about the situation. And he's like, you take care of me, you take care of Jim, you take care of Marty. I think we can work something out. And sure enough, that's what happened.
Wow.
And it really changed. I mean, our company became what you were doing.
Yeah, that was a big time. One thing, Dale, what I remember about John, and also it was Jim Twining at the time, was these guys were voracious readers, like book after book. And John would constantly say, what are you reading? What are you reading? And I remember, I think part of that was when I got the bug, like really to start reading. And Jim Twining used to was it every quarter, he had an objective to go meet with another company. And he had a list 20 questions, and he would travel anywhere in the United States, and you would do it as well, to go meet with people just to learn what people are doing right, what they're doing wrong. And God, I forgot, some of those things are embedded in you that you forget about. I'm glad you brought that up.
And I kind of want to back you guys up and slow you down a little bit just for our listeners.
Are we finished?
Yeah. You guys, you not busted most of it out. So I don't know. You guys just rattled off 5 names, 5 companies, maybe more, that all been very successful, all kind of started at the same stage, grew, sold. What were maybe some of you mentioned reading. What are some of the common traits? Because you all had to have some common traits, I would think, of that group that maybe... If I'm a listener out there that I could pick up on. Reading sounds one. I know, John, you just said you're still trying to learn. So I think you guys are always learners. Right? You never stop. But what are some of those common traits maybe that group had that made everybody so successful?
I think there's several. One of them is just the intention. I mean, all of those people's intention was to be remarkably successful in the tech field in Greenville. I mean, that was kind of what we were all trying to do. And then the question is that all those people took complete accountability over their results.
Yeah.
There was not one ever, well, the economy's hurting us, or none of that stuff. It was like, what are we going to do based on today's situation to make our damn number? Right? I mean, that's all you can do if you put yourself in that situation. And the other is this propensity to want to learn from other people to kind of get shortcuts to success. And one of the, Marty, I'm sure has more than I do, but I found a lady in Gainesville, Georgia, and I dealt with her company before, and I'd heard that they were just this great kick-ass company. And so I called her and I said, I've heard great things about you. I want to see what you got going on. Can I come visit you? And she said, sure. So I went down there, and every single person at their company, they might have had 50 people. They were all like young, fresh-faced, walking with a little pace, and they were like, hey, how are you? What's your name? What are you here for? Who do you They just were all gung-ho and had great energy. And I asked her, I said, Lillian, how do you do it? All these people are so darn friendly and nice, and they seem so happy to be here. And she goes, oh, it's real simple. She goes, those are the kind of people I look for. And she goes, and when they come and I give them the offer, I said, before you take this offer, understand this is the way you have to stay, or I'm going to let you go. And so she just makes it real clear.
Yeah.
And that's how you create that culture, is you try to attract those kind of people, and then you have to enforce it. If you let one donkey stay in your company, then the rest of the people are just going to kind of move just a little bit towards the donkey.
Yep.
Right? So anyway, that was an example of learning from one of those customers. And so in our organization, at least in the sales part, we didn't allow. You remember a donkey in our sales organization?
A few got in, but a few. It's funny.
It was a big group.
You had a big pen, but eventually they get weeded out, they learn this attitude's not there. It's back to, we always talk about by design. don't leave your culture to chance.
Yeah.
Like don't leave.
Right.
And one of the things, John, you're really big on was testing. And you want to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, we found, and again, as a young sales manager, I had every intention of being successful, no idea how to do it. Okay, how would I know? How would anyone know, without any coaching or anything? And, my boss was more on the technical side. He was good at a lot of things, but he was particularly good at technical. So I was trying to figure it out. And my first 7 or 8 hires were just random. I mean, different backgrounds, different everything. And I was trying to get all of them to behave in one specific way I wanted, and it was virtually impossible. It was so frustrating for me. I literally had to go to the doctor and check my heart. He thought I might, at 27, maybe having a heart attack, So anyway, I called Bill Lee, who's just a famous business coach here in Greenville. And he said, well, what kind of person are you looking for when you recruit, John? And I'm like, what? I don't know. Just kind of whoever walks in. If I like them, we give them a try. And he's like, well, why don't we test your people and see if we can find any commonality among your better people and your worst people. And if there is one, let's start hiring the people with the better commonality.
Shocking. Shocking.
And stay away from the other ones. I was like, I got it. And so, long story short, we ended up over time refining a profile on our testing profile, the Colby.com test that we use, that just showed that the people with this kind of score consistently sold more and were easier to manage than the people with a different kind of score. And so we just hired a whole bunch of those people. And we hired them. He said hire them local. If you're building a company in Greenville, he says, you might find the perfect person from Oklahoma City, okay? But the odds are they're going to move back. So why don't you hire people from around here who go to local colleges and kind of build that local culture? And so we hired Clemson, Wofford, Citadel, Furman were kind of our schools. And, over time we had, 70, 80 people that were all, they called it like a fraternity almost, or sorority, or maybe it was a mixture. I don't know, but we had a good culture because of that.
We had a great culture. I mean, I remember back to when you hired me. Before they would hire me, I had to take the Colby exam.
Yeah, it's amazing in my adventures through HR and ops the last 30 years, how many companies I would start with and they'd say, okay, we need to hire X amount. And you're like, okay, well, where's the profile? Like, where's the employee profile for that position? Well, here's the job description. No, I didn't ask for the job. Like that, the job description is completely different than what, and we always called it define our fish. Like anyone can go out, cast a net in the ocean, pull up a bunch of fish and say, I don't know, that looks like the best fish. But we've always said, let's define what the fish we're looking for, then get intentional. What kind of bait? Where do they hang out? Where do they, where can we have the best chance of catching that specific fish? So it sounds like you were doing it right from the beginning of, hey, let's define what we want and then just focus on finding that versus trial and error.
Well, it's pretty simple, but I mean, if you hire the random people and try to get them to do something, it's very difficult.
It's very random.
Yeah, it's very random. If you hire the exact right kind of people, your life as a sales manager anyway becomes very easy. And they're doing exactly what you want. Plus, they're pushing you in new directions. Like Marty, you never had to tell Marty what to do. He was kind of telling us what to do. And anyway.
Well, one of the things, sort of back. I like Dale. Your analogy is once you sort of know your fish, then you go where to fish, and then you find your honey hole. And I think you found a honey hole, just like at Advoco. We tapped into the industrial engineering program at Clemson.
Right.
You got into the Citadel.
Yeah.
You talk about a honey hole.
Yeah. So we got, since I went there, I had a little bit of a leg up. But, once we found, this is the trick I tell people all the time. Most people that I coach, the owner, it's hard for them to think long-term enough for some of this stuff to work. Like, if you start recruiting good people out of college or from the Clemson engineering department or whatever it is, we're talking a year, 2 years, 3 years. All of a sudden, you're really building something. But we got our first 2 people from the Citadel like in 1991 or something, and they were both very good, both recommended by the placement department, both passed the test, both athletes, all the stuff we wanted. And here's the trick. The next year, they gave us 2 more each that were juniors. So now we had 4. We had 6 total, and those people gave us a few more the next year. And so I would go down there and meet them and all, but they were kind of telling me, listen, you need to hire Dale and Marty, okay? Those are the guys, coming up right now. And so that's kind of how it went for a while. I think we hired like 50 Citadel cadets over the course of 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
And John, it's interesting because, we talked to a lot of clients about that because a lot of folks just want to, I need somebody with 10, you look at any job description, we need 5 years, 10 years experience.
Right.
And as soon as I see that, I'm like, oh gosh, they're already going down the wrong path.
Yeah.
But what do you say to the company that says, I don't have time. I don't have time to train them. I need I already sold the project. I need somebody that can just plug and play. I'm going to go, I don't have time to go inexperienced, to go fresh out of college. What would you say to that person? Because I talk to a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, I would try to get them to back up and look at the big picture with you, and say if we really do have an acute emergency at New York Transit or whatever, okay, fine, hire some contractors, solve that problem, but let's also put this thing into place where we're starting to recruit for the long term to really build a nice company. So that's what I would do.
Yeah, I try to tell them, don't hire for where you are, hire for where you're going or want to be. And it's a subtle mind shift, but people struggle with that because they don't want to do the training. They don't want to. I know you're big on onboarding, and they don't want to do that piece. They just kind of want to hire and throw them over there and start making money.
We have an example. I like to hire people right out of college and start to give them responsibility early, and there's a couple reasons for that. I'm giving away a lot of the secret sauce here, but if I found Marty Osborn and he was a junior at Clemson, and I got to know him, identified him, saw his Colby, salesman extraordinaire. I'm like, oh my God, here's one. This is my chance to get Marty, probably for not that much money either. Okay, but Marty, 10 years later, can't touch him with a 10-foot pole. He already knows how much money he's worth. He's getting paid somewhere. I mean, he's gone. So your best chance to get your A players is when they're really young in college. Once they get out, the A players identify themselves so quickly, you'll never see them again. But we had one, Todd Lorbach, who we got out of Clemson, who was a finance major, and he was so good. He was a great Colby, work ethic, who worked, 10, 12 hours every day, killed his number. And so after 2 years, I guess he was 23, we decided to make him Johnny Appleseed and say, we don't have anything going on really around the world. Let's give Todd the international territory. And we bought him an around
Your territory is the world.
The world.
Except the United States. You have the world.
We bought him an around the world ticket. So you could get on that ticket as long as you can stop as much as you want, but you have to keep going in the same direction. And he had to get all these vaccines and stuff, and so I had to call his mother and tell her what we were doing, make her comfortable.
Permission slip.
Yeah, permission for Todd to travel. But anyway, the point is, I knew he was good, and because he was young, he got treated differently on this trip than some 50-year-old would.
Yeah.
And if I went around, they'd be like, oh, here comes this executive guy. Todd, they're like, oh, Todd, come stay in our house.
Yeah, we love you.
Yeah. He got welcomed all over the world because he was young.
Yeah. So it's funny you bring up Todd Lorbach because one of my favorite stories was we were in one of our breakfast meetings sitting around, and you were telling me about this guy who was doing around the world. He would come into work at like 9 o'clock. He would work from 9 or maybe 11 o'clock at night because of the time zone to 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I got freaking obsessed with this, because I'm that competitive nature. Like, who does this?
Yeah.
I literally drove to your office, sat in the parking lot to watch him drive in, go to work. I went back home, came back when he left. I was like, I don't know. It was just that drive, that somebody made it happen.
Right.
Because, we did a podcast. You can't get promoted in your pajamas.
Right.
You got to get up and do the work. And that was the one thing I think, John, you did a great job. And one of the pieces of the Colby was quick starter.
Yeah.
What you needed was, I can't put motivation into you. I can't make you do it. So if you hire that profile with people that are quick starters, then they'll just make it happen. You want to go around the world? Sure, let's do it. Let's try it. Let's go. And I think that is one of the secret sauces to success that so many people tell you why it won't work.
Right.
I never heard you really look at why it won't work. You're like, what could go wrong?
Yeah, we'll try it. We'll try
So
it.
Todd wasn't the type to say, but I got a dog during COVID and I can't travel. Sorry. Sorry.
Todd
PTSD.
did not have a place to live for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
He did not have a home. He would just go, and when he was in Greenville, he'd stay in our basement.
Yeah. I'm back on the plane.
John,
So-
I do want to talk about, so we've talked about hiring, and I know just by reading your stuff, a lot of your values align with ours as far as treating people like humans. You say kindness is a competitive advantage. So I kind of want to just get into that a little bit because I'm the same way. I always used to hate, hey, you guys are adults, act like adults, but we have an attendance policy. If you're sick, I need a doctor's note, which is like, just trust. If they're sick, they're sick. Why can't we trust them? Maybe talk about how kindness, how you came to view kindness as a competitive advantage, and also why is it so rare? Because it seems like easy, but it's not. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a competitive advantage.
You know, I'm not even sure how conscious a choice it was for me. I think it's just natural to try to be kind to everybody, unless they're not going to be helpful for the business, and then we have to let them go do that somewhere else. And so I'm very open to that too, but I want to do it kindly, right?
Yeah.
If someone doesn't belong there, same personally, I want to be kind to every single person I meet, but if they're not going to be kind back, then I'll just won't interface with them so much. So I try not to be unkind. In terms of a competitive advantage, I think it's just proven time and time again. It's kind of in short supply. When people run into someone who's kind and not thinking short term or just transactionally, they can feel the difference. And I was telling a story yesterday. This lady, I'm telling Marty, this lady just bought an eyeglass store. And the first time I met her, I kind of wandered in there just randomly, and I was thinking I was wearing workout clothes, and I'm surprised she didn't call the police. I mean, just a big, crazy, sweaty man walking in there. And, the dumb transactional question would have been like, what kind of glasses do you want? What's your budget? When do you want the glasses?
Yeah.
Let's get you fitted. All those transactional questions. She says, well, gosh, those are some nice glasses you have. What are you into? How can glasses help you? What are you thinking about doing? What do you do for a living? And she figured out at that time that I was trying to do podcasting. This is like 3 years ago, and that my market was younger people. And once she finally unraveled it, she finally like, we're gonna do some stuff to make you seem a little bit younger, a little hipper. And so she kind of used kindness to figure me out versus being so rigid.
Yeah. But I also think she took the time to understand kind of what are you thinking, but she also kind of knew, right? She might have known the answer, but she didn't just like, oh, you need to be looking at this or that. And now all of a sudden your defenses are up. But
brought me in.
She brought you in. Yeah.
And I think some leaders out there, they mistake kindness. They allow bad performance and they don't say anything because I need to be kind. I can't tell that person maybe they're not meeting my expectations. I would argue that's very unkind. You're not being kind to that person if they're going home every day thinking they're killing it. And you're talking to your other buddies going, man, this guy's terrible.
Well, we always said to be unclear is to be unkind. If you don't set the expectations, if you don't tell people what success is, then you're being unkind. And so...
and it's kind to have those conversations because this may not be the place for you. And as long as you're here, you're not going to find what you're going to be great at, what you're going to be successful at. So by keeping them, you're being unkind. You're not allowing them to go flourish.
So to dig into that, I got a question for you, John. And because you deal a lot with salespeople and sales organizations. And one of the challenges, what percentage of the people that you actually move into a sales organization figure out shouldn't be in sales? Because sometimes we always say, oh, here's my team. And you're like, okay. But in that role when you're working with the owner to be kind or to be clear, what do you typically find in that situation?
Well, I mean, when we hire them to our spec, we're probably 90%
Right.
that we have good matches. We miss a little bit here and there. When I go into a random sales organization, I mean, I'm lucky if 40% of them are a good match.
Right.
I've gone in before where it was 100% wrong. And the poor people, like you said, Dale, it's a complete mismatch. So we're asking them to do a pipeline, and we're putting pressure on them to make the number, and they're just like freaking out.
Well, they're probably introverts or they're not galvanizers. So we're asking them to do something that they're not naturally comfortable doing.
Yeah. So it's, one of the people I learned from was Jim McCauley, who ran Michelin North America for many years. And he said that was one of his great lessons is, if you know someone's not cutting the mustard, if it's not a good fit for them, and you let them stay, it's horrible because they're wasting their time. They could be doing something that they're more aligned doing versus hanging around Michelin trying not to get fired.
Yeah.
So I think you're right about that.
Yeah. So you've scaled sales teams, regular teams, over the 30-year period. Again, what we see a lot is the owner of the companies we work for, they are the salesperson in their organization. They own every relationship. They're making every call. What advice would you give them as they start to say, okay, I probably need to build a sales team, other than making sure you do some assessments? But like, what would maybe the top 2 or 3 tips? Hey, if you're going to do this, which I believe they need to, they need to kind of back out and get a sales team in there. Of course. How would you tell them to, hey, here's how you go about just starting?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they want to scale, obviously they're going to have to build a sales team, right? I mean, they can't do it all themselves over a period of time. So let's just say if they want to scale, they're going to do it. Most of them make the same mistake, is they don't have a hiring profile. They don't really recruit very hard. They just kind of say, well, let's just try Sarah. See, we like Sarah's good. Yeah. We'll try her. Yeah. We'll try Marty. He's a good guy, and we'll give those guys a try. And so what happens is the owner is never able to give up the ghost on the sales because he's got to help Sarah and help Marty, and they're no good, and they won't make the calls. They won't make the calls, Marty. They won't call high. They can't negotiate, right? Yeah. All the things I'm good at. And so they make that mistake. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so what they need to do, if they don't know how to do it themselves, is hire someone who does. Could be me, could be Marty, could be you guys. But someone who knows how to say, okay, in year 1, we want to hire 2 people. Here's the profile. Here's the comp plan. Here's what a typical day looks like. Here's where the leads are going to come from. Here's how we're going to get them trained, right? Just a simple 1-page document, kind of a outline of what we're going to do. And then based on how that goes, we'll adjust for year 2. Maybe we have to retool, or maybe we can just hire 2 more. And then 4 more.
Can I just put an ad out that says 5-year sales experience and hire the first person that applies? That's so much easier.
Isn't it funny though, Dale? That again is almost like an anti-ad. If you say all we want is 5 years experience and you're so good that you're available.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we're going to get someone who's just been hanging around, and who's available to swap over to whatever we're doing, and the very best sales companies, like the Citadel, I go down there, Oracle's down there, Frito-Lay's down there. They're doing the same thing I'm doing. We're trying to pick off, like if you went to a little small pond fishing, trying to find that one big fish in there.
It's hard.
They're looking for the big fish at the Citadel, or maybe 2. And the same at, wherever they go, Clemson, wherever they go, they're trying to pick that one out and put them in the Oracle training program because they're going to hire 100 people a year.
Yep.
And so that's what you got to do. You got to work to build and make that thing. People tell me all the time, come make my sales team better. I'm like, well, I can make them a little better. But, I need the right kind of people to build a great team.
Yeah. What is it It was like the basketball coach. It's not just the X's and the O's, but it's the Joes.
It's the Jimmy and the Joes. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you got to have the right people. Yeah. And so I think you hit on something. This is, again, I think the number one challenge small business has is the owners got to let their ego out. And they're also, let's be honest, we're just too lazy. We're too busy to do the job. And we just want it to go away. And I talk about this in my book. is the number one problem we have in hiring as owners is we suck at it because we're too busy and we don't want to do the work. And when you don't do the work, you take any Joe and then you get mad. And then why can't they make the calls? And they knew they were supposed to do it. Yeah. Well, you didn't hire the right person. And so to me, that is the right answer is you got to take the time.
Yeah.
You have to like do it right and know what you want. And I think half the time when you sit down and say, well, what do you want? They're like, well, like, how do you not know what you want? Right. How have you not built out this profile? I got one other question to you. And it's funny, I just had this conversation yesterday. Small business, 10 people, needs to hire their first salesperson. And they're like, what do I do? Do I hire experienced? Do I hire young? How do I go about it? Any advice for this person?
Well, I still think they need to build a profile. You know, what do they need the person to do? And, you know, is it inside? Is it outside? Do they need any knowledge of what it is they're selling or not? Ideally, you want to find someone who's interested in the field. Like in our case, someone who likes technology. In the case of Rebel Rabbit, who I've done a little bit of coaching for, you know, they make THC infused drinks.
Should be crushing it right now.
Yeah, and who are they hiring? You know, kind of cool dudes. You know, I'll drink some of that. Sure. So I think you want to try to hire for the people you're going to be calling on too. So I would say there's 7 or 8 factors I would look for, and try to hire local, hire to the Colby. But yeah, it's really important, and I would always encourage people to try to hire these very important first hires on a contract to start with. Say, hey, let's just do a little project. Let's have you make cold calls for a month or something. We'll pay you, and just make sure. You know, we hired a guy, Marty. You and I hired a guy one time, who we paid some recruiter $1 zillion to get this perfect guy from Oracle. You know, and he'd been an Oracle corporate. He'd been a VP of sales at Oracle. And the very first day, Dale, the very first day that he was reporting for duty, he showed up at 11 bells. 11 a.m. and his voicemail was full. And, I mean, it was just, he's like, well, I had to, take the dog to the vet or something. Like the first day. And so we knew
right away.
We knew right away. And for 2 months we ignored and hoped that it would change. But it didn't, did it, Marty?
Hope was not a good strategy.
Hope was not a good strategy.
And I think there's a couple other steps here that we have to keep in mind. One is, what stage of the business are you in? Like, if you're just growing, I'm a big grow together. Recruit that person that you can train up, that you could get it to do it your way, your preferred way, and you can kind of grow together. The other step, I think, is yes, we need to build a profile and all that for the employee. But one thing I love to ask companies this is, okay, so let's say you get that big fish at Citadel. You're on it. You've got it on the line. What are you going to do when they say, well, why should I work for you when I have an Oracle? What's your pitch? And a lot of companies can't even define why a superstar should come work for them over an Oracle, over an Evoco. We felt like we had a pretty good pitch at Evoco, where ours was work hard, play hard. We had kind of a little more fun family, so we could recruit against the big dogs. Because I always said, if you want a corner office and a different job title and promotions every 6 months, we're not for you.
Yeah.
But if you want to come and get exposed to some cool stuff with some cool people and have fun doing it, then you want us.
Yeah.
So we had a pitch of why a superstar should come to us. And I think a lot of companies forget that piece, and they can't verbalize to a superstar.
The other thing, which is going to sound kind of odd, is if somebody said, I've got all these offers, I need it, instead of us hurrying up, we slowed down. So think about that. We didn't hurry up. We didn't try to get them. If you were torn between the jobs, we slowed down, because the goal was we wanted you to buy into what we were doing, not us selling you on some comp program or we're going to beat this company. Because if you're not really in your heart wanting to come work for us, then probably Oracle and SAP or whatever is better suited for you. And we were comfortable with that. And the more we slowed down, what we found was the truly superstars who wanted to buy in, who saw our culture, they would stick with us. And then we knew we had them.
I always love to ask, do you want the opportunity or do you want the money? Because if it's the money, we can't compete. And guess what? Even if you go up and pay them top dollar to start, all that means is when they get another offer that's a couple dollars more, they're going to be right back in your office going, are you guys going to match?
Right.
So I used to just love, hey, do you want the opportunity or do you want the money? If you want the money, go. I don't blame you one bit for taking the money.
Yeah.
If you want to come here, ours is more about the opportunity and the long-term growth. And some people would say, no, I'm taking the money. But good luck to you. Never failed. About 3 years later, they'd call me up going, hey,
Come back.
this big company stuff's not for me. Can we come work for you?
So one of the things we want to make a plug for your book, Noob School.
Sure.
I mean, one of the things that if people are looking for sales, and again, I always said it's not only if you're just new to sales, but if you're an owner of a company that you don't really know sales or you're trying to hire a salesperson, like this is a really good book to get you in the mindset. Do you want to share a little bit about the book or what you hope people get from it?
I wrote the book mostly about what I've learned about coaching, really coaching young salespeople in becoming great salespeople. And Marty knows that we have, lots and lots, dozens of examples of people that started with us out of Wofford or Citadel or Clemson even, started out at like back in the day, $28,000 a year or something plus commission that are making $1 million a year now.
Yeah.
Or for SAP or Salesforce or somebody. one of them just sold a deal for Salesforce for $250 million.
Oh my goodness.
It's a long way from 5 and 5, right?
250, yeah. 250. And that was for a 7-year term. So he's waiting, he's watching the clock, it's only 6 more years. Got to renew. So we have a lot of examples of that. And, one of the things that people wrongly think is, well, gosh, John can turn anyone into a great salesperson. Not exactly. I found them. Okay, all these people, I found them. I didn't take any of them off the curb and turn them into something. I found these people that were good fits. T.J. Pomey and Ty Lorbach, all those folks. So the book talks about what are the things they have to do to become good. The intention is one of them. Having the self-actualization, Dale, to say, this is who I am. This is my Colby score. I'm naturally gifted at this kind of sales. I'm going to try to match up to that kind of company. I want to be, one of my big things is I've never seen a great salesperson or business person long term that didn't really have their act together. That they were in reasonably good shape, that their personal life was under control. Okay. And so that's really, I think that's chapter 1 or chapter 2 of the book, is they have to have themselves under control. And then we talk about, all the, regular training and all the different things they have to do to get there, comp plans. I think it's an easy read. It's like 160 pages. And I've had many owner read it and say this is more about building a sales team than it is just a salesperson.
Correct. That's what I kind of took from it is I think it helps. But again, I think the challenge is back to defining your fish. I think people have a hard time defining their fish because they're not sure what to think about.
Right.
And by reading that book, I think helps them get in the mindset of what a salesperson should be able to do. And then from that, start to define what they expect.
And I think it's one of your most important hires. Because I did a LinkedIn post the other day. Nothing happens in a company till somebody sells something.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can have all these other pieces. And the other part is it's almost like HR in a sense that everyone thinks they can do it. Oh, I can be sales. I can do sales.
It's easy.
Yeah, how hard is it to
play golf?
I'm absolutely terrible. I can do it, but we always say just because you can, who's going to get better results? Somebody that can do it or somebody that loves doing it?
Yeah.
And it's always going to be that somebody that loves doing it, which is why the testing, I think, is so important to find those folks that just love it. Like Marty, you can just tell you guys love it.
I live to talk.
I can do it. There's a big difference between those two things.
Yeah, but again, people have different skill sets, natural skill sets, and I couldn't do what you do, I'm sure. I mean, I can't do my expense reports.
That must be a common sales. That must be a
well,
common
John
sales
never
thing,
really
too.
told you in the Colby, there was 2 big things he looked for. Quick starter, that means we just start running, and B was no follow through.
Yeah.
Because if you were really high on follow through, which means you're
got bogged
disciplined and do it, that's great. But when you're hunting deals and you're spending all your time, I'll get to those calls, but I got to do my expense reports.
Right.
That's not the guy you wanted.
Right. Yeah.
We'll get somebody to do it. We'll figure that stuff out.
Right.
I need you. How many calls? You remember in the data stream world?
Yeah.
How many calls you expected a person to make a day?
Well, there was a long stretch where we wanted 32 conversations a day.
Yeah.
And, you know, that changes a little bit when we start doing a lot of like chats and emails and everything else. But we started to count all that as conversations. But I think that's one of the keys to sales is, you know, identifying the people you're supposed to be talking to, your most likely prospects, and having a lot of conversations with them. You know, and then figure out which ones are ready to talk turkey. You know, I mean, that's kind of it, right? In a nutshell. And most people, I swear to you, most people don't do the first part. They don't call the people in the first place.
They don't want to buy.
They say, well, it's been a slow week. Well, how many conversations did you have? Well, we had a meeting. We had a meeting earlier, and I had to do my expense report and had to take the dog to the vet, but it's been slow. No kidding, it's been slow.
It's never slow. And you know, it's funny. I get into this whole thing about current events and who's the president and what's going on. And there's a million reasons I can't call. Did you know that there's a war going on? Like, okay, I don't see anybody out here. And it's like in your mind is if you believe you can't, you're 100% right. And so to me, that attitude is.
I had a friend who was in sales, no longer in sales, but was in sales a while back. God love this guy. I loved him to death. But he was like, look, I can't call Monday morning. They're just getting in the office. Nobody wants to hear. Can't call Friday afternoon. Everybody's trying to get out of the office.
They're gone. Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, so you're already combining your work week from 5 days into about 4.
Back to that, like my biggest sales. So John, I was running like products and so forth. And I think you got rid of the West Coast sales manager. And so John kind of comes in my office, and this probably makes John great, is he challenges everybody to do something. He said, Marty, you're good in sales. You've done sales. Would you mind running the West for me for a while?
Just for a minute.
Just for a while. So I'm like, sure, I'll do it. So I was traveling West Coast, and I was chasing a big deal with Louisiana Pacific. And it was like the end of the year. We're chasing the deal. It's like Christmas Eve. And, you know, people are like, oh, nobody's answering the phones. We're still pounding the phones. So I called the VP because they said they were going to do it, but he said, I'll do it at the end of the year. So I pick up the phone, I call him. He answers on like Christmas Eve at 4 o'clock. And he's like, hello. And I said, Joe? And he said, yeah, this is Marty Osborn. I know we've been working with your team. And finally, I'm like trying to pitch him to sign the deal. And he's like, oh, we'll do it next year. And I go, but it's Christmas. And the guy's just like, I don't know how you got my phone number. I'll sign it under one condition: you never call me again. And I was like, deal. Like I felt bad, but I was like,
you got the deal.
But I just was like, because it was going to go down. Yeah. He was going to sign it. I mean, what's the difference in 6 days? And finally, I just pulled the it's Christmas. But people wouldn't make the call, and I was like, we're running right up to the end. We needed the deal, so I just laughed.
We had one, Marty. We don't have to tell deal stories the rest of the time, but we had one. It was like, I think it was like Cincinnati or something, city of Cincinnati or something up in Ohio. And the rep comes to me and goes, you know, the guy promised, this was like a consultant up there. He promised to place the order and get the discount, you know, before the end of the year. And now he's not doing it. And he won't call me back. I'm like, okay. I said, well, get me the mayor's number. So I called the mayor's office, and I didn't get the mayor, but I got an assistant mayor or something. I go, just want to make you aware that one of your vendors is going to cost your taxpayers $100,000 just because you won't sign a document. And he goes, hold on a second. I mean, and so anyway, they signed the document. The guy calls me up, the consultant goes, you are the devil. You are the devil. And I'm like, well, maybe I am. What now? He goes, well, we're sending a document. Thank you very much.
The mayor of Cincinnati wasn't Jerry Springer at the time.
Maybe it was. That would have been cool if it was Jerry Springer.
That would have been really cool.
Yeah.
I want to shift gears a little bit. We've talked a lot about sales and hiring and scaling teams, but I also know the Sterling Venture Group, you guys buy businesses.
Yeah.
You know, you guys are in the buying game. Part of By Design is we hope to get companies ready with their fundamentals to get ready to sell. So kind of want to shift just a little bit into that mode and maybe talk a little bit about what you look for in businesses that you're considering buying.
Good question, Dale. Again, I do think we can be symbiotic for sure. I'm looking for older B2B software companies. Companies like, the same kind of business that DataStream was in, maintenance software. I've got a company that does warehousing software, a company that does volunteer management software. It can really be anything that's just like one basic important thing that the software handles. And it needs to be older, meaning it's got older customers, it's got some significant recurring revenue, and usually the owner, is ready to get out. And I'm buying them under $5 million in revenue, which means I'm kind of below the private equity line. So I've got people, there's lots and lots of them that are kind of stuck there. They don't have an easy way out. So I'm trying to give them a way out. And then, with our DataStream connections and friends, I've got people who can help with marketing, technical stuff, sales stuff, and just kind of collectively run these things together, and usually at a little bit lower expense line. So that's what I'm looking for. We're typically able to pay like 3 to 5 times EBITDA once we adjust it for the owner's compensation. So that's kind of what we're looking for. So under $5 million, 3 to 5 times EBITDA, industrial software.
And people love hearing about red flags. What are some of the red flags as you're evaluating a business that will make you say, nope?
Well, for me, it would be brand new, like a new fangled AI, so-and-so. That's not my game.
AI powered? That's the new
AI
thing.
Powered
by
whatever.
AI?
That's not my thing.
Yep.
So if it's new, it's not good. If it's a multitude of different products that work together somehow, I want something simple, like it's a warehouse software or it's maintenance software, something that I can really understand. And then usually the other red flag would be it's not owned by one person who's been running it for a long time. It's like it's a venture capital company or a private equity company. It's just some complexity that goes with that I don't want to mess with. So I'm able to find people pretty regularly, that have been running it for a while and looking for a reasonable way out.
Okay.
Yeah, we saw, one of the statistics with the baby boomers and so forth, there's a lot of people that are in that 20-year range, 25 years, had a software idea, ran a good business, made good money, and they're just ready to get out.
Right.
Like they're just
Tired
tired,
of the grind.
right?
Yep, tired of
the
the
grind and everything else, and they don't really want to add new salespeople. They don't want to do new marketing. They don't want to do those things. And so I think it's, John and I have had this conversation about new startups, like how hard it is to start a business. Like I have this great idea for a software. It's like pushing a freaking train up the hill.
Right.
And it's hard because we might get it halfway up the hill and something hiccups, it's going to roll over us.
Right.
Whereas the guy that had it smart and John came up with the term, was the hobo, right? The hobo watches when the train starts moving. It's not moving fast, but he moves, he runs on less energy, and then it picks up speed. And so we laugh because that's what we're kind of looking for, that high opportunity or business ownership where the train's been moving or it's moving at a pace that if you can hop on by doing the things like, sales, marketing can make them better. So I think it's a really cool model.
Well, another thing about what y'all do and what I do is if I'm looking for, let's just say 4 times EBITDA to buy. So let's just say, let's don't say EBITDA again. Let's just say earnings, like how much are they making every year. Sometimes I'll talk to an owner, and by the time we finish talking, they're just starting to really wake up to the idea of selling. They hadn't really thought about it till they talked to me, and they're like, no, I don't think I'm ready. Or I'm going to wait till my numbers are a little bit better. I want a little more money or whatever. But, it's just a new thing to them. And I think if you guys get a hold of them first and say, let's not just plan to get you a fair price. Let's spend 2 years getting the rest of your life put together.
Yeah.
Where are you going to live and what are you going to do? Are you going to be a coach? Are you going to write a book? What are you going to do? And I think that's what's missing sometimes. I missed a deal recently. The owner was like literally 80 years old. And I thought, this is a sure thing. He's got to be ready. He's got to be ready. And he was like, no, I'm going to get these numbers, work these numbers a little bit longer. I'm like, okay. It's his business. But if I think sometimes you haven't thought about what you're going to do next, and so hopefully we'll be able to collaborate on that.
Yeah. No, one thing, and this is, I think you're right. Like and a lot of people just wake up, or it's really easy to say, I'm going to sell my business.
Yeah.
The one thing, and again, I experienced this with one of my old business partners, is he believed once he sold or he was out, he was dying. Like he had no other reason. Like the brain slows down, you die.
Yeah.
And it sounds silly and it sounds stupid, but it's real.
Yeah.
So you might be 82 years old and you're thinking you should be with your grandkids, you should be out. But they've been working every day and they believe that I wake up in the morning, if I don't have this business to grumble about, to argue over, to do whatever, like their life's over. So sometimes you have to understand not the financial side, but the personal side.
Right.
And how do you, I don't have a great answer how to deal with that, but we see that every day as well.
Well, and we're all sports fans. Joe Paterno, Bear Bryant, right? They coached, retired, and were dead within a year.
Right.
So I think that is a fear.
Yeah.
The other thing is they tell a great story in the SEPA certification of the guy who's like, what are you going to do when you sell your business? I'm going to build a house. Great, but what are you going to do after you sell your business? I'm going to build a house. Mm-hmm. He asked it a few times. They're like, all right, how many hours are you working currently in your business? Oh, 60 hours a week. Yeah. And how long have you been doing this? 20 years. Yeah. How long does it take to build a house? Oh, yeah. What are you going to do after the house is built? And there's no answer to your point.
I'm going to fish. I'm going to golf. Do you do that today?
No. And you can only do so much of that. So I think that is a legitimate fear. If they haven't sat down and really figured out what next is, like you and Marty have figured out, you guys coach, you help, you mentor, you volunteer. You got to have a plan, I think. Yeah.
And also on the money side, I would have happily paid this last company, what we agreed to, which was, I think, maybe 4 times EBITDA or something. If you guys got a hold of them, for 2 years you helped them and they grew a little bit and did a little bit better, I'd still be able to pay 4 times EBITDA, whatever it is, because I'm getting a fair value and probably an easier company to manage.
Well, that was one of the things that was funny. I was talking to another CEO of a company who buys companies, and we were talking about it. He goes, like, we need to get you guys in, because most people, when you buy a company, it's not like real estate. Like, you don't really want to rehab them. Because if they're really messy, then it takes too much of your time. Even private equity people don't want to buy messes. They want to buy clean earnings. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the things that we need to help owners get their balance sheet cleaned up, get their earnings cleaned up, get their story cleaned up. A lot of times people have like 5 things and they're all excited about their 5 businesses. When you sit down to try to explain it, they're like, I have no idea what you do. And and if I don't understand, how is somebody going to buy your company understand? Yeah. So, if you can get in ahead of time and, again, everything gets back to, I think we talked about it first off, about intentionality, about doing things by design, that if you really want to be successful, it's not hard. No. It just has to be by design. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, John, in researching you for today and just looking over some of your stuff, it's really funny. I try to tell people, we come in and we help with your fundamentals around people, processes, and profits. Mm-hmm. And I was reading yours, and one of your sayings was pipeline, people, processes. And I was like, oh, those are all very similar to what we're doing or what we believe in. And that's why I was excited to talk to you today, just because so much of what you do aligns with what we believe in. And I know you're busy, and I think we've taken up most of your time today. Anything you want to wrap up with, Marty?
No, I just think it's been fun, kind of reminiscing a little bit. I think going back to the sales piece, we sometimes over time we start to forget about the work. I think we think about the joy, we think about the fun. I mean, they always said you can tell a great coach by the coaching tree, like Nick Saban and so forth. Yeah. I mean, John, your tree of salespeople and successful people is vast and it's unbelievable. And so to be able to re-talk about it is just, it really is fun.
Well, it's great to be part of your tree too, Marty. This is awesome. I'd like to do it again. I'd like to come back.
We would love to have you back. Any other plugs or?
Well, if anyone knows anyone who's got a B2B software business,
there you go.
Under $5 million, I'll take good care of them. Or if you need some coaching help.
If you need coaching, sales help, or
a little jazz trio, some sweet tunes.
Yeah, and if you're ever in Greenville, when it's not so hot, under the bridge, down by the
river.
By the river. That's a little scary. Yeah. But John is playing usually at 5 o'clock his saxophone, and it's always good fun.
No, it was great talking to you guys. If anyone out there needs sales help, I don't know two better people to get involved to help you out. These guys are amazing. They've helped me out a ton just by reading books and podcasts and all that fun stuff. So, John, thank you so much.
Thank
sir.
you.
We
It's great.
appreciate it.
Great being here.
And thanks for everybody for listening. Until next time.